Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. The DOJ sued Apple for monopolizing the smartphone market with illegal tactics, and Microsoft was criticized by legislators from both parties for succumbing to the censorship system of the Chinese Communist Party. So will Marco Rubio be President Trump's running mate? We'll give you his attitude. And will President Trump be able to put together more than $500 million in bonds in a matter of days to preserve his properties? The deadline for this payment is March 25th. And that's the day that President Trump's True Social platform could go public, so it's like a race against time. The overall opinion in the U.S. regarding President Trump has changed. Wall Street and Silicon Valley tycoons have begun to support President Trump's policies. The price of gold has reached an all-time high, but experts say that it will keep going up. Okay, let's get into it. Apple CEO Tim Cook is on a high-profile visit to Shanghai. This is because Apple is suffering from declining iPhone sales in China. We've analyzed the reasons for this in the last few days. Cook went to Shanghai apparently to save the day. With the recent opening of a major new Apple store in Shanghai, perhaps he's hoping to use his presence to help attract traffic to the new store or to do some communications with the Beijing government. I don't know if these PR tactics of his are effective, but Apple is also in trouble in the U.S. On Thursday, the U.S. Department of Justice and 16 states and territories sued the high-tech company Apple for monopolizing the smartphone market.
Earlier today, the Department of Justice, joined by 15 states and the District of Columbia, sued Apple in the U.S. District Court for the District of New Jersey for violating Section 2 of the Sherman Antitrust Act.
The U.S. Department of Justice stated that Apple's iPhone ecosystem is monopolistic, and this has led to an astronomical valuation of the company, thereby harming consumers, developers, and competing handset makers.
But as our complaint alleges, Apple has maintained monopoly power in the smartphone market not simply by staying ahead of the competition on the merits, but by violating federal antitrust law. Consumers should not have to pay higher prices because companies break the law. We allege that Apple has employed a strategy that relies on exclusionary, anti-competitive conduct that hurts both consumers and developers. For consumers, that has meant fewer choices, higher prices and fees, lower quality smartphones, apps, and accessories, and less innovation from Apple and its competitors.
The Federal Antitrust Enforcement Agency and 16 attorneys general also said that Apple's anti-competitive behavior extends beyond the iPhone and the Apple Watch businesses. The civil lawsuit alleges that Apple maintains an unlawful monopoly over smartphones by imposing contractual restrictions on developers and blocking their critical access. The DOJ said in an effort to keep consumers buying iPhones, Apple took steps to block cross-platform messaging apps, to limit third-party wallet and smartwatch compatibility, and to disrupt non-app store programs and cloud streaming services. Merrick Garland claims that Apple has monopolized the smartphone market, but not because of the value of its own products.
Apple charges as much as nearly $1,600 for an iPhone. As set out in our complaint, Apple has maintained its power not because of its superiority, because of its unlawful exclusionary behavior.
In a subsequent press conference, Garland cited a key principle of the U.S. Antitrust Act. This principle is little known, but it's a key part of today's litigation. Garland said that monopolies are not against the law. Under the U.S. Antitrust Act, a monopoly is illegal only if it employs anti-competitive tactics or harms competition in order to maintain its monopoly.
Monopolies like Apple's threaten the free and fair markets upon which our economy is based. They stifle innovation. They hurt producers and workers, and they increase costs for consumers.
Apple shares fell 3.3% after the DOJ announced the massive antitrust lawsuit against Apple. So far this year, Apple stock has fallen more than 10%. However, it will take some time before we know whether Apple has actually violated the antitrust law. It could take years for the case to go through the judicial system. Microsoft's Bing is the only Western search engine that is available in the Chinese market, and it is the second largest in China. However, earlier this month, Bloomberg released an investigative report suggesting that Microsoft is helping the Communist Party of China with its online censorship by blacklisting thousands of websites, words, and phrases. These include human rights, China's climate change, democracy, and the Nobel Peace Prize, and the list continues to grow. Senator Marco Rubio told Bloomberg in an emailed statement, "Every company doing business in China makes concessions to a genocidal, authoritarian regime." He also said no U.S. company can defend such censorship. Last week, Senator Mark Warner, a Virginia Democrat, also called for Microsoft to consider closing its Bing service in China. According to Bloomberg, Google and Yahoo no longer deliver results using their own search engines in China. Many services based in Western countries such as Facebook, Snapchat, and X are blocked in China. However, Microsoft continues to provide a local version of Bing in China, but it's required to comply with the Chinese government's demands. NBC is reporting that Senator Marco Rubio is a potential vice presidential nominee for Trump's presidency. President Trump himself, in an interview with Newsmax, estimated that there are about 15 people on the list of potential VP candidates. A Trump advisor said, "The list is long and it's extremely early in any kind of process. A vice presidential announcement could come in June, but there are no specific plans yet." But the NBC report says that President Trump has shown a clear regard for Marco Rubio, the 52-year-old third-term senator. Marco Rubio is young and telegenic. The article says Rubio, the Miami-born son of working-class Cuban immigrants, looks good on paper and on television, a powerful combination for Trump. A veteran Florida GOP operative said, "It's pretty clear from Trump's orbit that Rubio is in play." It makes sense because he checks almost every box if they can get past both being from Florida. There is, of course, a practical operational problem, since the Constitution provides that electors may not vote for the president and vice president of the same state. But there is a solution to the problem, and there is a precedent. Longtime Texan resident Dick Cheney moved his residence to Wyoming in 2000 in order to campaign with George W. Bush in Texas. On Thursday, Rubio was asked about this during an interview with NBC. He said he was honored. Rubio said, "I think anybody who would be offered that should be honored. But I've never spoken to anybody in the Trump world about it." Before we move on, I want to tell you about the excellent news about the FDA finally losing its war against ivermectin. We published this story on our Ganjing World platform so that we could talk about it in more depth. I'll leave the link in the description below. Please watch it there. Okay, let's get back into it. Shortly after, New York State Attorney General Letitia James filed a letter that was asking the New York State Supreme Court to disregard the issue that the $464 million bond that President Trump needs to pay is a practical impossibility. The court then ordered her to remove the letter. In the letter, Letitia James had asked the court not to accept the testimonies of a Trump attorney and broker. Their testimonies detailed the efforts that they'd gone through in trying to obtain a $464 million bond. She claims that they are unreliable sources. The defense argued that her letter was improperly filed, and they faulted the state for not providing any reason to doubt any of their assertions. The defense wrote, "The court may draw its own conclusions about the propriety of this maneuver. In doing so, the court is not required to exhibit a naivete from which ordinary citizens are free." The deadline for the payment of this bond is March 25th. But the good news is that President Trump's own social media platform, Truth Social, is expected to go public as soon as next week. The Wall Street Journal reported that Truth Social's stock price has risen in popularity among supporters, and that Trump expects to pocket $3.5 billion once the company goes public. This will also help reduce financial pressure on the Trump campaign, which is facing challenges in raising money for the election. True Social's market capitalization has exploded to $6 billion. If it goes public, it still has to be approved by the shareholders' meeting. The Wall Street Journal reported that because the shareholders are almost all Trump supporters, the March 22nd morning is expected to pass the vote for the merger of True Social and Digital World acquisition. If everything goes well, the stock market will appear on March 25th with Donald Trump's initials DJT stock code. Under the rules, after a company goes public, President Trump has to wait 6 months before he can sell his holdings. However, these shares can be pledged as collateral to lending companies so he can borrow the money to pay the fine or to back the bond. The latest good news is that President Trump now claims that he has enough cash for the bond. He posted on social media today that through hard work, talent, and luck, I currently have almost $500 million in cash. He posted that he had intended to use a substantial amount of his money in his presidential campaign on the civil fraud case. Wall Street was against President Trump in both the 2016 and 2020 presidential campaigns, but this year things have changed. Wall Street and Silicon Valley tycoons have begun to show Trump favoritism and express their dislike of Biden's policies. This may have something to do with the change in the overall situation in the United States. In 2016, President Trump supporters were in the silent majority. In 2020, red state workers wore MAGA hats and held up signs saying "Drain the Swamp." In 2024, President Trump supporters have the courage to express their views and their anger publicly. In this atmosphere, the wealthy openly and quietly embrace the Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and the prospect of a return to the Trump era. Howard Lutnick, the CEO of the financial firm Cantor Fitzgerald LP, along with hedge fund manager John Paulson, will host a fundraiser for President Trump in April. Nelson Peltz, an activist, investor, and billionaire who owns a large stake in Disney, voiced his support for President Trump in an interview with Britain's Financial Times. He cited Biden's poor mental health and the Biden administration's policies on illegal immigration. He says that the 81-year-old Biden's current mental condition is really scary. He said, "I don't know what he knows, and I don't know what he doesn't know. I don't know who's speaking for him, and that's troubling." Another Wall Street bigwig, JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon, publicly called President Trump a terrific political figure in January. In addition to Wall Street billionaires, the Silicon Valley billionaires' political shift in 2024 is even more astounding. Once a bastion of advocacy for social tolerance and liberalism, Silicon Valley has been a reliable source of support for politicians such as Hillary Clinton, who was the 2016 Democratic presidential candidate, and Barack Obama, the U.S. president from 2008 to 2016. 8 years ago, there was only one venture capitalist, Peter Thiel, betting on President Trump. He was virtually the only one among tech leaders. Today, some of the most surprisingly favorable voices for President Trump come from Silicon Valley. Oracle's Larry Ellison has reportedly dined with President Trump several times recently, even though he has yet to donate to President Trump's campaign. Venture capitalists David Sachs and Mark Andreessen, though they may not have taken a position on which candidate to support, have often on X been harsh critics of Biden and his policies. In addition to the policy of illegal immigration, the rich are also worried about the division of their property. In fact, Biden has explicitly threatened this. In his State of the Union address, Biden called for a 25% billionaire tax on any personal asset that is worth more than $100 million, and this is beyond their annual income tax and capital gains. Biden also proposed raising the corporate income tax rate from 21% to 28% while eliminating Trump-era tax cuts. This would help solve his federal debt problem. The Biden administration has also aggressively scrutinized and blocked mergers and acquisitions by large companies. This is another policy that is unpopular with business leaders. Come November, there's no difference between these billionaires and ordinary voters. We only have one person, one vote. But they obviously have more influence because of their position. Billionaires are often interviewed by the media and their views are heard by more people. Several DeSantis donors have also recently switched their support to President Trump. U.S. packaging company mogul and billionaire couple, the Goulets, said that they decided to donate to President Trump because they like his policies. The couple had previously donated $1.5 million to the Republican primary campaign of DeSantis. Recently, Liz Goulet told the Financial Times everyone likes Trump's policies. Hotel developer Robert Bigelow has likewise changed his stance. Bigelow also initially funded Ron DeSantis' campaign. According to FEC records, on February 9th, Robert Bigelow sent a $5 million donation to MAGA Incorporated, which is a committee that is associated with President Trump. In February, Alan Fair, the CEO of the Denver-based real estate company Alden Torch Financials, sent a $1 million donation to MAGA Incorporated. Fair also previously supported DeSantis' candidacy with a $100,000 gift to Never Back Down. Team Trump also received large donations from other tycoons. In February, Egyptian-American businessman Emil Michael and his company M8 Enterprises LLC both sent $1 million to MAGA Incorporated in February. Michael is not a major political donor according to Open Secrets donor records. His donations have never exceeded $10,000, and he has supported both Democrats and Republicans in the past. Jimmy John's founder, James J. Lioto, sent $1 million to MAGA Incorporated in February, and this is his largest donation ever. The price of gold continues to rise, hitting a record high on Thursday. As central banks continue to buy record quantities, there is room for the price of gold to rise even still further. Akashi Doshi, the head of commodities research at Citi North America, said that the Fed could cut interest rates in the second half of 2024, and as a result, he expects gold could rise to $2,300 an ounce in the second half of 2024. Gold is currently trading at $2,207. The price of gold tends to have an inverse relationship with interest rates. As interest rates fall, bond yields fall, making gold more attractive than fixed income assets such as bonds. Conversely, higher interest rates tend to make gold less attractive because it does not pay any interest compared to bonds. And a stronger U.S. dollar also weakens gold's attractiveness. Macquarie is also predicting that the gold price will hit new highs in the second half of this year. In a recent report, analysts at Macquarie attributed the recent $100 surge in the gold price to heavy futures buying. Central banks have been buying record amounts of gold over the past 2 years, said Shakai Fan, who is a global central banker of the World Gold Council. Central banks are expected to continue to be strong buyers in 2024. Rising global geopolitical uncertainty has also led to increased buying of actual gold. Over the past decade, Russia and China have been the two largest buyers. However, in recent years, other central banks have begun to buy gold, Doshi said. The World Gold Council says China's weak economy and a struggling real estate sector have prompted more investors to turn to safe haven assets, and demand for individual gold investments is also strong. The Chinese Communist Party's People's Bank is therefore the main driver of demand for gold, and this trend is unlikely to slow down. Poland's central bank is the second largest gold consumer, and it snapped up 130 tons of gold in 2023. Demand for gold from India's central bank also continued to be strong. The Reserve Bank of India, RBI, purchased 8.7 tons of gold in January, which was the highest monthly purchase since July of 2022. Turkey is also showing strong demand for gold, with last year's gold demand almost double that of 2022. Recently, scientists discovered that many other mechanisms besides genes control our body functions. Here are some examples. In the past, it was commonly believed that DNA provided instructions to proteins for vital life functions. However, humans make several million types of proteins, and the number of protein-coded genes is only estimated to be between about 19,000 and 20,000. Even though the number of proteins may vary from different sources, it is universally agreed that a gap exists between the number of genes and proteins. This is one of the most shocking findings of the Human Genome Project. When the researchers realized that the hypothesis, one gene, one protein, was incorrect, they began looking for other mechanisms. Here's one possible answer. Imagine a gene as a bracelet that is composed of strands of beads of different colors, such as blue, green, red, or orange. The protein that the gene produces is made up of a specific selection of these beads. For instance, protein A might combine blue, red, or orange beads, while protein B might consist of green, red, or orange beads. This process of selecting different beads to form a protein is called splicing. A single gene can have various ways of splicing, which is called alternative splicing. Our immune system is a great example of how our body adapts to fight new viruses. Whenever a new pathogen enters our body, our immune cells must recognize and bind to it immediately. This is where alternative splicing comes in. It's a mechanism that allows the same set of genes in our immune cells to adapt rapidly when viruses change. This results in the creation of tailor-made proteins to fight each virus. So what controls immune cells to change gene splicing and its end product? In order to find the answer, let's discuss another example, which is called transgenic animals. Scientists modify the genes of transgenic animals to replicate certain diseases that are found in humans. This allows them to test new drugs. Although many drugs have been successfully tested in animal trials, their translation into effective patient treatments has been disappointingly slow. Failure in an Alzheimer's drug is one example. If the gene is responsible for a disease, fixing the gene should cure the patient. However, drugs that work in transgenic models may not work in humans. Another fascinating example is identical twins. Although these twins share the same genetic code, they can exhibit diverse characteristics and health conditions due to different life experiences and environmental factors. A study in the European Archives of Psychiatry and Clinical Neuroscience found that even identical twins with the same genome have a probability of less than 50% of both developing schizophrenia. This suggests that genes do not entirely determine schizophrenia. Similar findings were also reported in the Virginia twin study. The researchers interviewed more than 1,500 identical twins, and they discovered that many twins experienced different frequencies of major depression episodes throughout their lives. Epigenetics influences how identical twins lead different lives. Epigenetics studies how environmental factors modify gene expression without changing DNA. It determines whether genes are turned on or off. Genes can be compared to seeds, whereas epigenetics is like the soil in which those seeds grow. Genes in the human body do not usually change after birth, but like seeds, they can lie inactive in the soil. Some genes will grow and some will not. What determines whether these seeds will grow or not are genetic switches, or epigenetics. Human lifespan depends on the interaction of nearly 80 genes and various epigenetic factors, such as diet, stress, and emotions. At different ages and organs, epigenetics determines whether and how genes are expressed. The interaction between multiple genes and other pivotal factors in disease also suggests that human life is controlled by more than genetic composition. So who or what controls their interactions? If genes do not tell the whole life story or how life works, what does? Every living creature, from a single gene to a germ's strand, is a tribute to thoughtful design and exquisite craftsmanship. The human body is remarkable. It's like a small universe. Whether it is the self-healing mechanisms of our genes or the intricate dance of our cells and organs, Every aspect of our biology speaks to a designer who carefully crafted us to thrive in our environment. Let's also remember that the connection between body, mind, and spirit extends beyond genetic control. Despite its complexities and beauty, the human body is more than a random collection of genes, cells, and molecules. From the intricacy of our DNA to the way our organs and systems function in harmony, it is clear that this is not merely by chance. Every aspect of our being reveals the signature of an intelligent and purposeful design. It displays the unmistakable imprint of the Creator's hand. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you. But please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that many of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube. So when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.